Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So, here's to empowerment, here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And here we go, and thank you for being a part of my world for the next hour on today's segment of The Power of Money with Michelle Graves, a show that I have been involved in since the 1980s as the producer. And again, I'm delighted to have a venue nationally in 54 cities, as well as on YouTube under The Power of Money with Michelle Graves. You'll find a ton of information, interviews, facts, things that will help you and your family in these chaotic and terrible days that we're in today. Knowledge is powerful. Don't dismiss that. Information from a validated source is powerful. And I say validated because you're giving me your opinion is not going to work. I mean, you're just not. So, and I've had over the 40 years I've been involved in the financial industry, I've had all kinds of opinions that people have given me, shared with me, and I completely ignore it because it does not come from a position of validation, meaning you're just giving me your thoughts, but your thoughts aren't grounded in anything that is credible. And I do mean it. Very important today. Fake news starts with you listening to your girlfriend or your male friend or your comrades or whatever. Fake news is as close as your ear is and your eye is. And the fact that you will speak on it, perpetuating it even more. And yet that's where we are today. Very few people today are willing to question whether or not the source of their friends, and I say friends, information, or social media, TikTok and Facebook and all, you got to vet things. You really do, because it's just where we are today. And on the subject of my topic today, I'm going to be talking about how COVID triggered mental illness. Oh, did I go there? Yes, I have to. I have to, because I have never seen so many people who are off balance, doing things that are just atypical for them and with no clue that that's even happening to them. So this show today is in honor of Pastor Charles Winburn, who is a specialist in private practice of education. He does master classes for people who really want to get answers and solutions. He's spearheading a lot of initiatives, including the issue of gun violence. And he has changed my world. I'm saying it publicly. He has changed my world. And why do I say this? I don't care. Let me just presage by saying, I don't really care whether you like the man personally or not, because my position is that
Anytime someone's giving you solid, grounded research information that explains things you did not understand, you need to time out. Time out. And listen to what they're saying. So every Sunday, he does a master class on this issue of getting your stuff together. And a lot of that has included foundationally the issue of childhood trauma, mental illness. How did people get like this? And he has been adamant that this behavior is not going to diminish, but rather it's going to accelerate. And so far, he's been right. He said that childhood violence is going to go through the roof. And we've seen this happening with teenagers. And he's given the foundation for all of us so that we can look at ourselves openly and objectively and begin to make the changes in our lives that we will need to have in place to propel to the next level. Because COVID is not going away. I don't believe that. I believe it will continue to mutate. It was a man-made virus. The original was tweaked. And so here we go. And I just, for myself, I am always a student of learning. I have learned over the years that you don't know everything, and you probably don't know anything. I had a PhD say this the other week. Brilliant man. And he said, what I've learned is that I don't know anything. And I was like, that sounds like me. I don't know anything. I'm just trying to play catch up. So today we're going to be talking about how COVID, this whole thing accelerated mental illness, and what you need to do as a listener to self-examine. It's going to save you a lot of heartache if you're willing to engage in this process. And again, I invite you to listen in on Sundays from wherever you are in the United States for Charles Winburn and his teachings on just a variety of subjects. And you can find him on YouTube as well to play catch up on so many things. But I think let's go back to what COVID did for the world. And that is, COVID not only brought in live and in full face the prospects of dying, not as an abstraction, but as a real right now. I will tell you, for years, I have struggled with people's denial of their own mortality, that you need to have insurance because your life here is already ticking. And I don't know the day or the hour when it will be required of me to leave this planet existence. But I do know that most people are in perpetual denial that it can happen to them or even those around them. Therefore, they tend to go into a grief state for a long time. They just can't believe it. They just can't believe it, as if life is guaranteed. Well, COVID taught us and showed us life is not guaranteed. A person can contract this thing and be dead in a week. I almost lost my daughter. That was frightening to her, because she did not believe this could happen. And yet, it does happen every day. In America, over 1 million people have died from COVID. But that does not include all the other diseases that people have died from, with cancer at the top, followed by heart issues, that, again, they happen every single day. And so, again, my concern and the reason I'm open about this subject matter is because also as a result of COVID, I have seen such an expansion of what I call disequilibrium among people across the board. Black people, white people, Asian people, Latino people, just off the board. And so I pre-conditioned this conversation with a strong admonition to all of you that are watching and listening to extend to everybody, people you know, people you don't know, extend kindness, extend grace, extend forgiveness. Why? Because people are not themselves, or maybe they are themselves, but because of the pressure of the time and the times, plural, people are not able to cope very well with a lot of stress and just on and on. It is horrible to watch. It's like watching the Trojan horse pull up and it unloads. Yeah, it unloads. Now, let's talk about, and I am not, let me also say, I am not a mental health professional. I'm trying to keep myself together, okay? I'm trying not to get caught up in the news media, in Facebook, in BBC News, in CNN, and Fox. I'm trying not to go that road because more than ever today, it's about you keeping a positive disposition about everything and being willing to engage in an openness that says, I'm good. Just be aware that many people you talk to in the course of your business, in the course of personal, are not okay. They are having coping problems and are on the verge of flipping the script. We look at those two teenagers and what they did and why they did it. And the question that came to my mind immediately because of what I've been learning is what kind of family life did they come out of? What kind of parents do they have? What kind of family or tribe do they come from? For real. Because DNA is brutally accurate when it comes to these kind of things. And all you need is something to tweak it, and there you go. Now, please understand, I'm not speaking about you, but if you feel funny, maybe the information I'm sharing with you is relevant. So let's begin by saying that mental illness is a part of physical illness, but it has to deal with the brain and how the brain processes information. It also has to deal with your DNA, which is a combination of the chromosomes from your husband, your mother and your father, and it goes back and back and back. Precise does not vary. But without an understanding of this, you will actually believe that this is normal behavior. I mean, for real. You will believe that the things that you may do or are doing are normative. And a psychologist will tell you, nope, that's not normal. It really isn't. For example, there are people out here who love the spirit of drama. They love drama. They will create drama unbeknownst to everybody around them just because they like drama. Now, what does drama do? Drama releases certain chemicals that create certain behaviors in you, period. It's a chemical factory manufactured by your brain, by your conscious brain. Okay? Boom, here you are. Have you ever been around people and seen them explode? And you're like, why? Well, you're looking at DNA and mental illness in motion. Have you been around people that will date people that they know are violent, but they will date them because there's something attractive about that. Well, DNA may say your grandfather was that way, your grandmother was accommodating, and therefore in your DNA is that possibility. Okay? Those are things you should look at. Those are not normal behaviors. A normal person does not run to danger. They don't. Unless they've been trained to expect it and to deal with it. And so let's talk about that. I'm just going to share some things with you. And again, the hope is that when you call me, or if you ever do call me for advice, and I give you advice, I'm not charging you, I give you advice, and you explode on the phone. What? You explode on the phone. Well, I don't agree with that. I don't do it. Wait. Your behavior and your response is not normal. While you have the right to believe as you wish with regard to your money, you called me. I didn't call you. You called me trying to get information, which I gave, and which you just went ham. You just went ballistic. Why? Because something in you told you that it was okay for you to do this. And without you understanding what the source was, you will probably do it again and again and again until you wind up either alone or you wind up in circumstances that are not so positive. One of which is, in my case, I'm not going to see you for a consult because I can't help you. You've got things going that are deeper than my financial advice. You do. And until you get a handle on that, you will be continually going around and around and around, trying to get out of a cage that you built and dropped yourself in it. So I'm just sharing that. I'll give you another case that happens frequently. And you can tell it because of how the person's response is. And this happens all the time. A person does not pay a bill. Just hypothetically, they don't pay a bill. Why? Because they don't have the money and they're not willing to change their behaviors so they can get the money. So when the bill man comes, like Duke Energy, and they cut it off, the person is very angry because their electric was disconnected. But the truth of the matter is, why are you angry at Duke? Why aren't you willing to change your response, reaction, and behavior and do something that would not cause you to experience a lack of heat, a lack of light? That's not complicated. But if you are constantly in a state of denial, you're constantly reinforcing your denial with these kind of episodes, then it's going to be hard for you to go further. And you're going to find that it's not just Duke, it may be another thing or another thing. These are things people do every day, okay? And it has nothing to do with your race, it has nothing to do with your class, it has a lot to do with how you were raised and trained. And even more so in understanding what your DNA looks like. These are just simple, short examples. This is why I am very, very careful at this point in my life in engaging in what I call nonsensical and bizarre behavior. I mean, for real. I just don't want it around me because it can and it will escalate because the person is caught up in their own gel cell experience. They actually cannot see outside of themselves to see how bizarre the whole thing is. And granted, we all have stuff, but people that are mentally challenged, they don't ever get out of that stuff because they don't see themselves as in it. They don't. They do not have the ability to see themselves as a co-participant, meaning this is happening to me, and it's happening to me because of blah, blah, blah. And the inability to say, I'm responsible for this happening for me, and either I need help or I need a strategy so I don't keep repeating it, because you will. You absolutely will. One of the things I read with great interest was the fact that very, very wealthy people and people that are even modestly wealthy, they're critically focused on making sure at all times that they are seeing a thing exactly as it is. And that may include ongoing therapy to keep them rooted in the accuracy of the experience or other things. But they are very, very conscientious about their behavior, and they stay on that trajectory. They don't get off-centered because they recognize, if I delve into the unfamiliar, I don't know what's going to happen to me. And that's very good. Hey, the unfamiliar can become the familiar if you do it enough. But let's get back to some just basics. And that is that this is all documented, well-researched, and validated. From 0 to 18 years old, 0, and even pre-birth to 18 years old, you are up under the family, the parent structure. 18 to 65, you work it out through life, through your own choices, and then at 65, you're pretty much fixed at where you are. Change will be hard, but change can happen. But it's the critical years of 0 to 18 years old that the majority of us, myself included, get stuck. And that's where I want to talk to you about today, because my belief system is that if we don't deal with these things, particularly childhood trauma, we are going to see more and more episodes of violence, of outrage, of terrible behavior, including gun violence. I absolutely believe in my heart of hearts that our children's exposure to the realities of life by way of parents and even family, and then don't let me forget to throw in virtual reality, where you get to kill people with no consequence and get imprinted into your brain that that's okay behavior, because a person ultimately does get back up and the game does resume. Those kinds of incidents that twist and distort how the brain processes logical information will have horrible outcomes. Let me give you a case in point, and it starts with pre-birth. And this is something that I was not aware of. The number of people whose parents did not want them while they were in the womb. It could be the act of procreation, meaning their parents had sex, but they weren't expecting a child out of it, or they weren't expecting to have their lives upended by the appearance of a child, and therefore they began to talk about it to themselves, releasing chemicals through the placenta into the child. Now we know for a fact the first organ in the body that develops is the brain. And this child inside of the mother is hearing via chemicals all of this hate and all of this anxiety and all of this frustration. This is what the baby is experiencing pre-birth, because they have consciousness and they're aware that they're not wanted. Their mother may be a drug abuser. Their mother may be a cigarette smoker. Their mother may be, who knows? Who knows? The father may come from a lineage, this is through the sperm, that's also jaded. And this child is trying to figure it out inside of the mother. So, is it reasonable to conclude, viewers and listeners, is it reasonable to conclude that that child is going to be born with problems? Let's start with health problems. We know that children that are born with asthma, that have eczema and other conditions, including autism, I'll even reach out to autism, are the result of prenatal syndrome, pre-trauma. They have been traumatized in the womb. And when they are born aware, very much aware, that they are not wanted or loved. Even though we say, oh, they're so cute, look at them, they have been chemically imbued with all of this stress, anxiety, and sorrow. I know I'm right because in the nation of Ukraine, where people pay women to have babies, and a lot of times these babies are not adopted, but they are in foster care, these babies are born depressed. They're born crying incessantly. Why? Because prior to their birth, they did not get the love and the comfort that a baby pre-birth is entitled to. They have not been cooed to, they have not been loved. And then the child is born. And let me just say about that, because that's really, really important. With so many women having babies in their teen years, what does a teenager, what does a 14-year-old know about childbearing and child rearing? Their children themselves, they may have come out of the same experience with their parents. No love, no affection, just here. Make it the best way you can. I am totally against teenage pregnancies. Why? Because the mother and the father cannot take the child where the child needs to be, and the child is typically going to be born with some kind of a health condition that traces back to the womb. Okay? It does. Children that are born with full body eczema, their whole skin is patchy, scaly, itchy. Pre-birth trauma. Yeah. So when you look at these things, and you can ask yourself, was I born into a pre-birth loving situation? Or was my mother panic-stricken, upset, and beside herself? Shame, guilt, rejected by your family, and then here we go. This is real life stuff, people. I told you, I'm not an expert, but the data is there, and I do read a lot, and these are from credible people. So the first thing in our country, a child is born, what's the first thing they do? They whack them. Can you imagine coming into the world with a whack? Why? Because we want to make sure they can breathe. Is that true? Is that true to our culture, that you want to hit a baby's bottom to bump them up? Or is a better way, a kinder way, maybe to allow them to be born in a very loving and comfortable and warm environment like water, and see how they turn out? Because it's gentle, it's kind, and it's loving, not the blaring bright white lights, not everybody pushing and carrying on, but the child is born in a loving way. This is not unusual, nor is it atypical, but I'm sharing with you, this is all a part of that childhood 0 to 18 experience. So, The first 2 years of your life after you're born, you are socialized into your parents' culture or into no culture if you're a foster child or an adopted child. You don't know what that looks like, but you do know what it feels like, because at that age, children only have very limited forms of communication, period. They don't have a developed vocabulary. So what do? They cry all the time, all the time. A lot of it has to do with developing their lungs. A lot of it has to do with, I can't speak English, and this is the best I can do. A lot of times they want to be held and squeezed. Why not? That's what babies love. A lot of times they just want to make noise to hear themselves. So as the parent, many cultures are socialized to say, let the child cry themselves to sleep. Really? Oh, you'll spoil them. How are you going to spoil a baby? They don't know anything. Why would we let them cry incessantly or stick a nook in their mouth so they won't cry at all? Their eyes are tearing, but they can't make noise. So the nook's job is to keep them from making noise, not for them to have an emotional meltdown. So I'm saying that because that's 1 and 2 years old. They're trying to find their way, and the response of the adults is to shut them up, let them cry themselves to sleep. They'll get tired and they'll go to sleep. Folks, can I just say time out for a minute? That's really bad, okay? It is bad. I'm not Dr. Seuss. I'm not Dr. whatever his name is, the specialist. But I will say to you that children are so innocent and so precious that if you have the opportunity to comfort and cuddle them, do it. Do it. Do it, and let them learn early that they're loved and that they're cared for and that they're wanted. Ages 1 through 2, early development. They learn some things. A child that's let alone and cries all the time and sucks on their nookie all the time is going to have rejection issues as they grow older, because their communication, crying, is not going to generate a positive response. So they grow up feeling right off the bat rejection. You don't think rejection is real? You need to look at adults that kill people because someone told them no. Okay? You need to look at teenagers that do terrible things to their parents, and you don't understand why. Or children. I just read about a 10-year-old. It gets back to, are you going to bring them into a world that is loving and kind, or are you going to bring them into a world experience that is about rejection and denial? And please don't say to me, please, they're spoiled. I'm telling you, they're not. They're not. They're just looking for love. And if you hold them and comfort them and speak to them in kind, loving tone, they will stop crying. It's not because they're spoiled. It's because they're being comforted. So that's their first experience. And I'm not prepared to say it's everybody's, but I'm saying to you, because of ignorance of parenting, it's the case for so many children. Okay? It just is. They come into this situation very badly. Then, from that intimate cultural experience, they move into a broader experience where they begin to learn good behavior and bad behavior. And they begin to learn the word no. And I'm here to tell you, I understand, I get it. You don't want your child burning down the house, so you tell them no. But may I submit to you that if their world is all no's, no, 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 they will go into the world thinking, before even asking, no. Now, the reason I can say this is because among girl babies and girls will not venture into the unknown because of the no factor. Because somebody's going to say, no, don't do that. Now, that's less today because you see more young ladies just doing it. And that's because of information, it's because of peer understanding, but they still struggle with no, okay? Those young ladies that were abused, athletes that were abused by their doctor, and again, fear, scared, not knowing how to tell him no and mean it. I'm trying to share with you, this has deep, deep roots. And we have to be willing to look at it if we're going to move forward, because we are in a changing world right now. And it's not about you saying no, but it's about you embracing yes. Yes, I can. Yes, I will. Yes, this can work for me. Yes, yes, yes. And not no, no, no. I'm guilty of the no conversation. Okay, because that's what my experience was. But I am making a conscious decision to say yes, to say it can happen. Yes, you can. Young people are so aware of it because they say, my parents are so negative. I said, well, your parents were raised in an environment of no, 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 not yes. So when you came across peers in your adult, you liked the yes, you saw that yes was just as great, did more than no could, and off you went. But the no conversation that happens before the age of 8, where children grow up in an environment that is really they're processing and absorbing, looking at behaviors, looking at their parents, looking at their peers, they're processing and growing and learning. And things start happening to them that are not so good, period. I tell parents, do not use profanity around your children. Why? Because the energy level of that curse word is very low, very low. And you cursing out your child because of your own inner frustrations. Okay, and it's not the child. The child is only mirroring what you show. And if you cannot work it out, time out. Time out. Swap out with your friends and babysit for them and let them babysit for you and do something different. But using profanity, low level energy, low, on your children, will only train them to do the same thing to you at the appointed time. And there will be an appointed time because the brain is going to consolidate all of this information and it's going to make decisions based upon the things that you have stored in your subconscious. Now, the subconscious and the conscious are two different experiences. Most of us are familiar with the conscious, but it's the subconscious, all that stuff that's been packaged and absorbed that will drive your behavior. Good or bad, it's going to drive your behavior. Loving parents usually have loving children. Just saying it. Loving, caring parents. Usually, now again, I don't like to make flat assumptions because there's always the DNA genetic, but I will tell you, if you can trace that back a couple of generations and they're all very nice people, I think you can conclude that that baby's going to be a nice person. Didn't say they wouldn't have ups and downs, but the parent is not going to be the facilitator of the storage in the subconscious, which drives the conscious. Yeah, 90%, 80% of the stuff is stored permanently. You can't even control it. It's stored. But the 5% we see is based upon the 80% that didn't speak. It's speaking, all right, if you will listen. If you will listen to a child as they talk and as they share about their perceptions on food, clothing, hunger, friends, etc. Listen to them, because a child's talking to you, okay? All of us can relate to that. When we saw things that didn't fit right, didn't work right, children's parents divorcing. Divorce is probably, next to death, the most traumatic thing a child can go through, where they don't understand that loss is not permanent. So when dad leaves, they think dad is really gone forever. And there's mom. And I'm just saying to people, all this, because you didn't know. And that's why I'm taking time out of the Power of Money and talk to you about why mental health is so critical. Critical. And as you begin to look at your childhood and not be able to connect why you cannot have good, solid relationships, why everything is always an over-the-top type of thing, why people move away from you rather than toward you, these are all signs. They're red flags. Not for them, for you, okay? For you. Now, at a certain point in life, if you look around and all your friends are testy and funny acting and don't have a lot going, then again, likes attract. Look at what is attracting you to that type of personality, okay? And then make an honest decision to end that relationship. Oh, now I'm really messing up. Well, who will I have to talk to? Well, if COVID taught you anything, for 2 years, quarantine and self-isolation was the rule of the land. We had to learn to deal with ourselves by ourselves. We had to learn to deal with people that we all of a sudden discovered that we did not like. I mean, for real. Divorce rates went through the roof as people recognize the person I married is not the person I thought. And that is a reality of you coming to the truth about yourself, okay? Women that married men for money and for all kinds of benefits, status, found themselves with a person that they did not like very much. And during this, according to data, people start divorcing, which is, you know what, I don't think I can grow old with this person. But you need to be able to look back at yourself and to see, what am I doing and what has caused me to behave in this manner. And then based upon that, it may be necessary for you to go back and apologize to your children, okay? It may be necessary. Because your children saw you, and they really do know the truth. They don't have any glossy pictures or anything else. They saw it, and they probably experienced it. So the challenge is, if I was not a good parent, or not a good father, not a good mother, that I will move beyond my selfishness and recognize that I entrapped other people into my story, and that I need to take the key and unlock the jail cell so that they can live fulfilled lives. This is so true. People think kids do not see parents arguing and fighting. And I share with people, what is that child processing in those formative years? What is their belief system about relationships? Do they believe that the only way they can have a relationship with another person is by fighting, hollering, and doing terrible things? Children who have been exposed to parents who were incarcerated. So now you get to see your parent in an environment that is cold and callous, and they don't get to see you. So there you are, trying to figure it out while your mother is trying to figure it out. Like, why did I do this? Well, a part of adulthood and maturity is recognizing that whatever reason that you did it, you can do better. And if there are children involved for their own mental health, you must do better. Please, please, for those of you that have issues, and I'm going to say it very openly, get help. I didn't say your pastor. I said help, real help. Okay? Psychologists, psychiatrists, if you want doctors, but get help. Please. We're at a time in history where people are now officially blowing up because all of the isolation, all of the fear, all of the things that they have tried to cover up, it's all coming out. And it's coming out in ways that you don't understand. Like, why am I so nasty? I mean this. Why are you when you can be nice? Why are you so vicious when you can be kind? You do have a choice. So why is the choice on the dark side and the negative? Probably because of your conditioning growing up. I know that I live in a community that has been founded by German population, heavily. And there is a fierceness and a gruffness that is a part of that culture. Now, I know from being a Latin student, for many years I studied Latin, I read Latin, and I know Germanus, which is what the Romans called Germany. Germanus was never taken over by the by the Romans. The Romans said they were just too mean, and they didn't. And so that may be a DNA thing. But I will tell you that I was in another part of the country that was settled by people who were highly educated, a lot of learning institutions, and always greeted each other with a smile and a hello. Did you hear what I said? A smile and a hello. You don't even have to want nothing, just how you doing today? And I believe that culture is major. So a child, depending upon where they grew up and what they're exposed to, they may feel that that behavior is acceptable for fostering relationships, when the reality is that it's not acceptable at all and will cause that person in the end much sorrow and despair. For real. They won't understand what happened. And I will say it happened a long time ago, but you have the power. You have the power to change that conversation. Did you hear me? You have the power to change that conversation. But first, you must acknowledge that it is your conversation and that you have to deal with it. If you would rather be manipulative and treacherous, because that's what you grew up with, seeing that, and this is why I share with women all the time, do not manipulate men around child support. Not in front of the children. What do you think you're teaching them? You're teaching them bad about their father, who you slept with. Yeah, you did, unless you did petri dishes. But you're also teaching a child that manipulation works. And guess who's going to be the first project for the child to manipulate? They learned it somewhere. When I found out that the young man, now deceased, that did that horrible stuff in Texas, was living with his grandmother because his mother couldn't handle him. And the first thing I said, because the grandmother seemed to be a very caring woman, is that he learned the art of manipulation very well. He did. But in the end, you see how that played out with the grandmother. Yeah, with the grandmother. And on and on and on. We can go on, and as you look at people on the news and in front of your face and in your workplace environments, Don't be absent to what is going on. Don't be dismissive, because it's a very, very deep, deep thing. The ultimate goal for all of us, no exceptions, is to be the very best we can be, with all of the information available to help us become even better. I absolutely believe that when you read about awful things happening at the hands of people, it is because the brain is off-centered, and that most of it is a result of what happened to them from ages 0 to 18, and they couldn't get beyond it. They couldn't. They didn't know to get beyond it. They thought this was just the way it was. But let me share with all of you, that is not the way it is. And that parents are not perfect. Parents make lots of mistakes, blow themselves up and you up, and you have to make decisions about that as to whether you're going to forgive and let it go and set it right with your children moving forward, that you will be attentive to correct your issues and to deal with them either through professional help, which, and before you say, I can't afford it, let me share with you something. If you're on Medicare, that's 65 and over, you can afford it because Medicare picks up the bulk of the tab for therapy. If you're under, there are agencies, there are resources that you can avail yourself of to get help. I'm not saying what it will cost. I don't know. But I do know this, that this conversation needs to continue as we begin to look around us and recognize that COVID unleashed a lot more than we counted on. That COVID unleashed what was going on inside of our subconscious in the form of memories, in the form of experiences, in the form of parental disruptions, in the form of family disruptions, in the form of church and religious disruptions, in the form of worldly disruptions, because now we get to watch on television drones killing everybody. That's real positive, okay? And don't get me twisted here. I'm not a la-la woman, but I do know that we cannot have this continuing, and that with the legislations being passed to prohibit certain types of guns, we have to deal with what is going on inside of the people, not the ones killing people, but the ones that want to. How do we identify? Does it start in the classroom with the teacher identifying and getting help for the child? When, as one teacher told me, the child may be a little off, but the parents are out of touch. She said, I dare not contact the parents about anything, period, because the parents are so totally nuts. And she's a teacher. And she's like, no, this is, I'm not touching, I'm just trying to get Johnny through class, okay, without hurting somebody. And that's where we are today. So my thought with her, my recommendation with her was we must begin to teach children coping skills. We must begin to teach children normative behavior, that having fits and tantrums and hitting each other is not good. And we must begin to teach children how to center within themselves so that they will not extend their behavior to others. That's my take on it. I know that for myself, one of the most powerful things that I have done with young people is to teach them the art of meditation, where they can literally shut down and just begin to quietly clear their brain and begin to affirm the positive that they are valuable, that they are loved, that they are wanted, even if their parents are off the trajectory. I have a responsibility to pour into them that positivity so that when they come into a crisis mode, which they will, There's no way you're not with parents and grandparents doing everything and great-grandparents. It's going to happen, but the child has to be able to retain their thinking in a balanced way. They cannot allow that negative, hateful stuff to pour into them. They cannot. Children, no matter how awful their parents are, children love their parents. They love their parents. They do. And you can say, well, how couldn't they? Well, they're from them, okay? Chromosomally, the child is the father and the mother. They're going to love their parents, despite how horrible their parents may be. So what has to happen is you have to focus on helping the child to actualize, helping the child to recognize that that behavior is not good behavior, and I don't do that. The child has the confidence in who they are to say, I don't do that, Mommy, or I don't do that, Daddy, or do you need help? For a child to tell a parent that is powerful. But I'm telling those of you that are watching today that, again, from 0 to 18, according to the researchers, that's when it happens. And that most of it happens before the age of 8. From the pre-birth trauma to the 0 to 2 years, to the 8 years, and then on. And my thoughts about all the above is, watch your mouth, watch the things you say to people, stay away from triggers. If a person responds in a certain way, don't keep pushing it, because you may see a behavior that is going to be troubling to you. Like, I didn't know they were like that. Well, truth of the matter is you probably didn't know them, period. Why not accept that? Because you're trying to learn yourself. So, on today's subject, COVID triggered the inevitable, mental illness. I wish you all well. I wish you good health. I wish you stable and kind thoughts. To yourself first, meaning I am special and I am loved. And I look forward to talking to you on the next segment of The Power of Money. I'm Michelle Graves. God bless you so much. You take care. Bye-bye.